guys, as always, we're excited again to have a guest that we're all looking forward to. Frank, without further ado, I'm going to let you do the honors. I know this, doing this kind of stuff for me over the last 4 or 5 years, these are the times when it's most exciting, when you have a guest on the caliber of person we have on tonight. Not only a great football coach, great human being, and some of his activities today display that, but he was a player at WVU, then a coach, and very successful coach, I might add. And, for a while, it seems odd now, but for a while there, I'm sure you guys feel the same way. It seemed like every time you turned the TV on, there was a Bowden on TV coaching a football game. They were everywhere.
That's right.
So it seems a little odd. You don't see them as much nowadays.
That's
but
right.
Anyway, this is the kind of thing that we enjoy. I mean, we enjoy all of our guests, but when you have one of this magnitude, it really perks you up a little bit. And I think it's one of the fun things about doing this is getting to meet these folks, hear their stories, and we've talked about what folks do after they leave WVU. Well, here's another prime example of someone who has been extremely successful after he left Morgantown. So I'll give you the honors to introduce him if you'd like.
Great, super. It's our honor to bring on Tommy Bowden from Destin, Florida. Tommy, it's great to have you here, and thanks for taking the time.
I had to go dig out my 1975 Peach Bowl jersey with the blood still on it. So it's excited about being on, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, I didn't tell you, Tommy, but we have video of you catching a pass in that game, which we're going to show later.
That's good. You went way back. It's got to be black and white.
Well, actually, I think it's in color, but I can't remember. But and Mickey, my God, I mean, Tommy didn't know our names, but he knew your name because you played for his dad.
That's right. Yep.
It must be a real thrill for you, Mickey, to have Tommy on the show.
It really is, Frank, I tell you. And as we were talking before the show started, I first met Tommy when he was 13 years old. He and Terry at 11 and a half years old running around Mountaineer Field while their dad had us out there just working our butts off in practice. And I can't believe here we are 54 years later. No, 58 years later, I guess. So it's a real treat to have you back on the show tonight, Coach Bowden. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Fantastic.
Yep, absolutely is. And you mentioned, we talked a little bit prior to coming on the show, you mentioned the fact that you come back to Morgantown 1 week out of the year and talk about what a special place it is. So let's go ahead and get this started with your high school days, middle school, high school days, and your time in Morgantown, and then your playing days after that.
When my father moved up there in 1966, he left from Florida State going up there. Back then they had junior highs. I went to Morgantown Junior High, Dragons, MJHS Dragons. I think that school is now a parking lot or something. It might be a library over there. But in fact, Mickey, my student teacher was Joe Pendry back at Morgantown Junior High. Oh, yeah. And that's where I heard my first curse word. No. But and then went on to Morgantown High School. A great coach back then. Vic Bonfili was our head coach. Lost to East Bank for the state championship. Then I walked on at West Virginia for 2 or 3 years under scholarship. My last couple of years, and then stayed on there to continue my coaching career as a young graduate assistant for Frank Signetti. And in fact, the year before I left Florida State, Frank Signetti said, "Listen, my father wanted me to come down there and coach with him." He had an older, more experienced defensive coordinator. He said, "No, I got this." Frank said, "Listen, I want you to stay here. I got a young secondary coach coming in, and I think you enjoy working with him." I said, "Yeah." I'm thinking to myself, I like to be with an older guy. That young secondary coach, Nick Saban, just came on the staff at West Virginia. But my wife, her maiden name is Linda White, is from Morgantown. So married a hometown girl, and we go back once a year for 1 week, and just you fall in love with Morgantown. And once you live some formidable years there, like I did, and meet people, it's a great place. I've been going back once a year for a week for 50 some years.
Wow. That's awesome. You talked a little bit about your coaching career, but before we get to that, let's go to your time at WVU when you walked on and then earned that scholarship. Let's hear about that. Your time playing football there.
Well, I really enjoyed it. It's just a great honor to play for West Virginia. In fact, I think I still have a record in West Virginia, which would be the least amount of catches for a 2-year starter. I think I just remember we played Syracuse my last year. I think I had 7 catches in one game, and I think I had 13 the whole year. They didn't throw it very much.
I was going to say, in your defense, the quarterbacks had probably the lowest passing attempts of anybody in the history up there during that time period.
Yeah,
they never threw.
But back then, a pass was a toss sweep. If you quarterback turned around to toss to the tailback, they considered that a forward pass. But Steve Lewis was another quarterback at that particular time. A guy named Cedric Thomas. I think it's Cedric Thomas from Aliquippa, PA. Danny Kendra, Danny Williams, quarterbacks. Haywood Smith, Ron Lee had running backs. Just a really good team, and really enjoyed my playing. It's always fun if you win. And of course, that redshirt junior year, we won and went to the Peach Bowl, and then stayed and played for Frank Signetti my last year. But and then of course Mickey obviously played a lot more than I did over the course of time at West Virginia. But spent 3 years on the scout team, getting beaten around, and you pay your dues, and it's definitely survival of the fittest. But really enjoyed it. It was an honor to get a scholarship, and I like to say I put food on my father's table for a couple of years as a starter.
There you go.
There you go.
Mickey, you had a question?
Yeah, just a quick question for Tommy. I've always been curious in a lot of father-son relationships. What's it like to play for your dad when he's not only your dad, but he's also your coach?
Fortunately for me, the year I started, we were winning. And that's always easy, because if you're losing your son's playing, obviously you're going to get some criticism, nepotism, and things. But I had a good experience. My father prepared me well, about walking on and the patience and perseverance that you're going to endure when you do that. So I had a good mentor, and he prepared me well. He prepared me well for playing at West Virginia and for going into my coaching career. But Mickey, you were around my father. One thing, he was a lot of people. He was a good Christian guy. But when he played on Saturday, he was Old Testament, eye for an eye and tooth for tooth, and kill them all. But I can count the number of cuss words he said on one hand. Now I remember one was at Boston College halftime. We were losing up there. One was a Friday night before we played Pitt. But he was tougher than nails. What a lot of people don't realize for a Christian guy. But he lived a lot in the Old Testament.
They call that righteous anger.
Right, righteous anger. Hey, Israelites are fixing to go down to the promised land, and God said, kill them all. Kill them all. The men, the women, children, we're coming.
Get rid of all of them. Yeah. The only curse word I ever heard him say was "dadgummit." That was it.
Oh yeah. That's that. Now if you counted that one, there's a bunch of them.
Tommy, we got a couple of questions for you, and we're going to flash them on the screen. The first one, I don't know if the first one's what kind of story it is, but we want to thank Mark Parsons, who's the person who's posing it. He was the one that helped arrange you to come on the show. So can you read that on your screen?
Oh, yeah. I appreciate him bringing that up. But I was defensive back in high school. I played both ways. Back then, you played both ways. We were playing Philip Harbor. We were undefeated, maybe 1 or 2 in the state. Philip Harbor, I don't know if they won a game. They had a one-armed tight end. The arm was severed at the elbow. A guy named Sam Guy. I think he went to med school, became a doctor. But playing man cover is my job to guard him. Well, who's going to guard a one-eyed guy? They're not going to throw it to a one-armed guy. I'll make every tackle. And we got 20-yard line. They were going in to score, play action pass, and I ran all the way up in the line of scrimmage, quarterback pulled the ball, and I looked over my head, and he lobbed an easy little pass. And I turned around, there was Sam Guy, the one-arm tight end for Philip Barber, in the end zone, caught the pass and beat us. And I go to the West Virginia game the next day, and I'm sitting up there in the stands, and I hear the people in front of me talking about, hey, did you hear about that one-armed guy that caught that pass last night? Oh, man, I appreciate Mark bringing that up.
Hey, what are friends for? Here's another one.
Exactly.
Here's another one from Joey Foster about Nick Saban and Charles Barkley.
Yeah, What I always people say, well, what's your solution to the NIL, the transfer portal? Man, it's just gotten out of hand. And I said, I was thinking, if I were king for a day, let me be king for a day. I would announce 2 commissioners, Nick Saban and Charles Barkley. It'd be one to handle basketball, one will handle a younger version that would handle the aspect from the player's perspective. And a guy like Nick Saban can do it from an organizational standpoint and from a coach's perspective. But if I were king for a day, I would name 2 commissioners. And for college football, let Nick Saban and Charles Barkley be the 2 commissioners. And I promise you, those 2 guys could figure out what's wrong with this NIL and transfer portal and make college sports a good game again.
Yeah, you're probably right. Probably right. You have you ever? I know when you quit coaching, what did you? I know we're going to talk about your coaching career in just a little bit, but it seemed like when you were done, you were done. And
I was 54, and I always thought in my mind, you probably remember the name Frank Broyles and Darrell Royal. Wanted to be the head coach of Arkansas, went to Texas, older guys. But my father had told me one time they both retired about 55. So I was 54 and I left Clemson, and I just didn't. You better have a burning desire to go and coach. And it's just 24/7. It's 90 to 105 hours per week, 365 days a year. And I enjoy faith-based. I do Christian speaking now. I did TV for 8 or 9 years, and so I got a piece of college football. I worked on Saturdays, so I didn't get to see a lot of games, but just other than one I was working in some conference games. But I really enjoyed that, and then to stop doing that when my father got sick. But so right after coaching, I said, I really love it, but let me sit out a year. And I talked with some ADs and some presidents of schools in the Big 12 and the SEC, and I just didn't have that burning desire you better have, like Rich Rodriguez has got staying in it. And, of course, Nick Saban stayed in it until his 70. Joe Paterno, my father stayed in it until he was 80. Joe Paterno, 83. I did not vision myself doing that. So I decided to go ahead and step back at that time. And I've never regretted it, but I see enough of the game now, from the studio as a TV analyst.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot of people ask coaches. I know I get asked all the time. I coached basketball for about 30 years. You get asked, do you miss coaching? And I honestly don't miss it. I miss practice. I miss summertime, but I don't miss the actual game and the coaching and the time you put into it. So I admire you for that. Go ahead, Mickey.
I was just I know that Tommy's very deeply involved in the Fellowship of Christian Athletes throughout the whole country. His dad was a big supporter of that group, even when I played for him 50 some odd years ago. I was thought perhaps maybe once he finishes talking about his collegiate career, perhaps we could delve into that a little bit and talk to us about what you're doing in that area, Tommy. I know you're doing quite a bit.
Yeah. And also,
okay, you want me to go ahead and talk about something about the FCA now? Did you want me to do that now?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay. Well, again, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I had a great mentor in my father, and that's kind of what he did. So I kind of got involved with FCA, the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, for those of you that aren't familiar, a national organization that deals with high school and college athletes, even down to grade school. But the Christian faith-based aspect. And, when you get into coaching, there's about 5 things. If you can get your players to make good decisions, you got a chance to be successful. You read it about your favorite team nowadays, there's a player getting in trouble every single day. So teaching players how to make good decisions, what characteristics are needed, commitment, accountability, responsibility, discipline, sacrifice. Those are 5 characteristics attributed to making good decisions. Look at Christianity, life of Jesus Christ, commitment, accountability, responsibility, discipline, sacrifice. So I thought as a coach, the FCA and athletics was a good marriage. The FCA would help me accomplish the things I needed, along with helping players make good decisions, and was a great vehicle for teaching commitment, accountability, responsibility, discipline, sacrifice. So I've always been involved as a coach. And then I was just down in Orlando Sunday night speaking of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes fundraiser, which I do really a lot. And I don't do it much on the West Coast. I don't know how many Christians we got out there on the West Coast, but I don't get out there very much. It's mostly from Iowa over, but really enjoy it. My father would say coaching was a huge priority in his life. It was just not the priority. And it was the same thing to me, trying to be a godly man, godly coach, godly father, godly husband. And Christianity has played such a huge part of that. The coaching profession, as we mentioned, look at the pressure now that Neil Brown's been under last year. Billy Napier, a guy that coached for me at Florida. You know, the pressure, Mike Norville at Florida State. To me, the pressure for a college coach is unbelievable. Stress, volatility, and you needed balance. You needed stability. To me, that was relationship with Jesus Christ that gave you that balance and stability when I needed it.
Yeah. I need to, Frank, if you don't mind, I need to. I think Coach Bowden will get a kick out of this. My experience with the FCA, when I started teaching and coaching at Mount Hope, the principal asked me if I would be the sponsor. I didn't really even know what was going on, but anyway, as the year progressed and I figured it out a little bit more, there was a guy in Beckley who was like the state leader of it. His name is Mike White, and became pretty good friends with Mike. Yeah. He called me one day and said, I need a favor. And I said, what's that? He said, I need to go to the airport and pick this guy up. He said, he's coming to Weston for a weekly, whatever they did there during a week, some kind of a camp. And I said, well, yeah, I guess so. I said, you do know, Mike, that the Charleston airport's like an hour and a half away from my house, right? He's like, oh, I didn't realize that. I said, that's all right. I'll go get him. So I go pick this guy up. Come to find out, this guy was he did his testimony and everything was through his strength. He was physically just a monster, and he would drive nails with his hand and all this kind of stuff.
I've seen this guy.
Oh, have you? Yeah. So I pick him up at the airport, and he's not saying too much. And I'm trying to, generate some conversation. And we get up around Flatwoods, and he's looking over at the stores in Flatwoods. And he said, well, you mind if we stop and get something to eat? I said, no, that's fine. So he was telling me about how many calories he had to eat every day because he lifted weights all the time, So we go into the Dairy Queen. He said he wanted to go to the Dairy Queen, and he ordered 5 grilled chicken sandwiches and a large Diet Coke. Cost me $38. Mike, I was like, my gosh, Mike. I said, no wonder you want me to go pick this guy up. Anyway, that was one of my big experiences with the FCA, but I delivered it one time.
There you go. Tommy, you were talking. You went through it very quickly. We want to put in a plug for your book. I've read it. It's it's you've become very much not only in your father's image, but very motivational and very much focused on character. And it's a great holiday. You can buy it online at bookstores, called Winning Character, A Proven Game Plan for Success. And we included here, Tommy, those 5 aspects, characteristics you talked about a few minutes ago: commitment, accountability, responsibility, discipline, and sacrifice. And they apply in everything. Athletics, in life, no matter what the age is.
Yeah, if you want to be successful in marriage, business, coaching, choosing friends, any aspect of your life, number one, you better make good decisions. And the process of making good decisions is having those characteristics. And it's like I said, nowadays with our youth, you just see so many bad decisions being made. And not that you're going to make all good decisions, but when I was a coach, trying to get my players associated resources. As a head coach, you're allowed 20 hours a week, 4 or 5 hours a day. Well, that's not very much. So I needed more resources trying to get players involved with the local church. Not a perfect group of people trying to make good decisions. The Bible is a book about making good decisions. The Fellowship of Christian Athletes, a group of athletes trying to make good decisions. So those are the resources I used as a coach. But when I got through coaching, Lifeway Ministries out of Nashville approached me about writing a book. And so along with their help, we wrote that book. I'm not a scholar by any stretch of imagination. So had a ghostwriter to help me do that, and was real pleased with it. But it talked about those 5 things. And as you mentioned, Frank, any area of life, if you want to be successful, you better have most, if not all of those qualities. And you've got a chance to be successful in any area.
Isn't that true? That's true.
Hey,
That's
Greg,
true.
if I could,
One of the things that
I just want to make a comment here. Tommy, I know your dad's creed was faith, family, and football. And in that order, he always stressed that with us when I was a young man. And I'll never forget some of the stories that he would relate to us about how important it was to have a foundation of faith in your life. A coach probably could not get away with this in today's era, but he and Jim Carlin, every Sunday morning, we had to dress up with a coat and tie, and the whole team went to church, and they would reserve like the first 5 or 6 rows for us. And you better well show up for that service, or you're going to be running the stadium steps at 5 o'clock on Wednesday morning. But the good thing about it was a different church every week. So you got exposure to Catholicism.
Yeah.
You got exposure to Christianity. You got exposure to all sorts of religions, which, was really good for all of us on the team.
Yeah. Well, I carried that on from when I was a head coach. I know Dabo Sweeney does the same thing. But it's once a year that I really strongly encourage. Like you said, you can't make them, but we always had 100% attendance because I usually wrote a note to the parents suggesting I was going to do that. If they had a problem, they could call me privately and we could discuss it, and their son could get out of it. Only had one guy in 12 years asked to not go. But just like you say, Mickey, as a coach, you're looking for as many resources as you can to help your players make good decisions. And that is certainly a place where at least the attempt is legitimate on trying to make good, rational, wise decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it was not mandatory. Actually, you had a choice. You could either go to church, put a coat tie on and go to church, or you could get up at 5 a.m. and go run the stadium steps.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Good choice.
Yeah, it's not only good character, it's good eating here. The Bowden family had fun. So Mike Dunlap says he called your father at home once, and your mom took the call, and they talked about the pie they were eating and what they were watching on TV. So.
It's amazing because my father, most head coaches do not, but to the day he died, he had a listed phone number. Most head coaches don't have a listed phone number.
That's right.
You could pick up the phone, look in the phone book, call him, and if he was home with just me and my mother, he would answer most of the time. So, and I did the same thing as a head coach. I kept the same policy. That's a legitimate. That story that was Mike Dunlap just had on there, I believe is accurate because you call, he'd pick up the phone if he was home.
Wow. Yeah, the thing the family blended, the character, the fun, but also the success for people who don't know. The second bullet there on your resume, you learned your craft at a lot of different places as assistant coach, just the way that Nick Saban did. And then you were head coach at Tulane and Clemson. And I can remember that undefeated team at Clemson. I think it was 99. Yeah, 99.
Yeah, Tulane, 1990. 1998 at Tulane.
That's right. I said Clemson. Then you went to Clemson. But
correct,
the undefeated season was at Tulane. Talk to us about that experience and an overall record of 90 and 49. So, for those people who think, you can't have high character, have fun, do things the right way, and win. The Bowdens are a good example that you can have all those and win. Talk to us about your coaching experiences.
One of the things I want to do is, of course, there's different avenues to become a head coach. One of the things I want to do is gain as much knowledge and absorb as much information about the coaching as I could. And I was very fortunate to coach some great places: Alabama and Auburn, Florida State, Kentucky, and Duke, and as a young West Virginia, as I started as a young assistant. But I wanted to absorb and accumulate as much as I could. So when I did become a head coach, then I'd feel very confident about it. And I remember when I took the head coaching job at Tulane in 1997, the first year there, we won 7 games, which is the most they'd won, I think, 17 years. The next year, we went undefeated, which they'd never done. And I think one of the reasons for the early success is because I felt confident in what I was doing, how to practice, how long to practice, how much hitting to do, and how to handle the media, how to handle discipline, how to handle staff morale, how to handle team morale, all the things I had witnessed from some of the greatest coaching, institutions in college football. And then I was very fortunate to be around my father, who was very successful. And along the way, at every stop, and even when I became a head coach, I'd pick up the phone and call it from not only a great coach, but a godly coach. So I got a shot of both. I got a shot in the arm of both aspects of the coach profession. And like you said, it's football is a tough, aggressive. A lot of people say it's a contact sport. It's really not a contact sport. Dancing and basketball is a contact sport. Football is a collision sport, and that's not normal for collisions. And so, and it's a loud sport. It's an aggressive sport. So you have to coach it that way if you want it played that way. And there's a fine line you walk between, be overbearing and your language and things like that. And I'm very fortunate I saw my father have success doing it in a godly way. So that really helped me along with those places that I coached. I really felt like I was qualified when I became a head coach for the first time.
Yeah. One of the other things that fans remember, if they're of an age, is the clashes, maybe that's not the right word, that you and your father had when you were head coach at Clemson and he was head coach at Florida State, and it was called the Bowen Bowl. How many times did you two play against each other?
We played 9 times. He won 5 and I won 4. And he won the first 4. And I tell you what, the very first year he won the national championship in 1999. I played in my first year at Clemson. We had him 14-3, Mickey. We had him 14-3 at halftime. I said, I'm going to get him. But I had been in his locker room as a player. I knew exactly what he was telling his team. They were a lot more talented than we were. And they ended up beating us 17-14. The next 3 years just killed us. But I won the next 4 out of 5. So I had him on the ropes. And then being my father, having respect for him, I'll let him beat me one more time than I beat him.
We've got a short clip of you and Bobby here, and let's play it.
Associated with this game, the official word that was always put out was that your mom was a neutral bystander. But we have a special guest who's joining us now who would absolutely contradict that, and we'll let you respond in just a moment.
My wife would sit up there in the stands, and she'd have Tommy and our son-in-law on that side, and have me and my son Jeffrey on this side. And who's she going to pull for, And I think she ultimately pulled for Florida State. That's because I had the credit card, Tommy. She didn't use Tommy's credit card. She used mine.
I'm guessing that would be one of those Capital One credit cards where he's talking to Michelle on the other end of the line.
I knew I was in trouble. My mother was sleeping with the enemy.
That's a great clip.
That's classic.
Yeah.
Hey, Tommy, I remember that 1999 season he had so vividly. As a matter of fact, they still show it. I saw it last week on ESPN's 30 for 30. They still run that hour-long episode about the success he had that year. I'll never forget his last bowl game. You competed against him 9 times. Yeah. In his very last bowl game, you know who his opponent was, right?
Well, yeah, West Virginia. Yep.
West Virginia. Yeah. And you mentioned earlier about being on the practice squad. We referred to those guys lovingly as the bomb squad or the bombers.
Oh, yeah.
So
I can sing the song.
You remember the bombers? One of the guys.
I remember the song.
Okay. This guy was a walk-on from Parsons, West Virginia. His name's Danny Wilfong, one of the meanest guys on the football field. You may know Danny. I know he was very supportive of his dad. And when he went to that bowl game, he and his wife got a pair of West Virginia jerseys and a pair of Florida State jerseys, and they cut them right down the middle and had a seamstress sew them together. So the attire for the day for Danny and his wife Joyce was half Florida State, half WVU on the same jersey. It was really special. And your dad came over. We had a big contingency down there for that game. He came over and probably spent an hour with us after the game was over.
Yeah.
I think we need to hear that song. Frank, what do you think?
Yeah.
Lift your
you
head.
still know that song?
Lift your head and hold them. Yeah, lift your head and hold them high, bombers, bombers. Lift your head and hold them high, baby. Lift your head and hold us high. Bombers are flying high. Bombers are bombers away. There you go. I remember well.
There you go, Greg. How about that?
Very good. Very good.
What a memory. What a memory.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Hey, Jake, I know you obviously still pay attention to college football. I know for us old heads, we get a little bit disgusted with the way things are going these days. Let's get your thoughts on today's game, and the business side of it has changed dramatically. What do you see as the good things and the bad things that are going on now, and what do you think needs to happen other than getting Charles Barkley and Nick Saban to run things? What do you think needs to happen in college football?
They just need some structure and some guidelines and some boundaries on NIL and transfer portal. And you get really disappointed in the administration of NCAA, who the Supreme Court voted 9-0 that the smartest people we have, college presidents and PhDs and lawyers and doctors, those college presidents, the NCAA, didn't have the vision to lose a 9-0 verdict. So all of a sudden it got taken away. I mean, it just took off with no boundaries, no guidelines, no standards, and the transfer portal, it was the same way. So that's why the college game is still great. There's the enthusiasm and the excitement of what's just happened over the first 5 weeks. Just this past weekend, 5 top 10 got lost. Just great games and great excitement. All that's there. We just need to get our hands around it and somehow put some structure into the NIL transfer portal. And until we do that, I think you're really going to struggle. But everything's been great about the game, college athletics, excitement, and the rivalries and game day and the tailgate, and that part of college is just great. But it needs a little better leadership. That's why I suggested Nick Saban. Now, my next talk on the next night, I said Nick Saban and Mike Krzyzewski. I put those two. So I've used several guys. Those two would get it squared away.
Have you had a chance to see the latest proposal by several presidents of universities about the way they'd like to see it unfold with divisions and NFL?
No, I have not. I've just seen it vaguely. I haven't seen it really precise in a small capsule where I could understand it, because it really is a complicated situation. But I just not that well versed in it right now.
Yeah. Frank, you want to follow up?
Well, we want to make sure. I mentioned earlier about the 75 Peach Bowl.
Yep.
We know you have to leave in a few minutes, but we want to play that because it's one of those highlights. Seriously, it's one of those highlights in Mountaineer history, the 75 Peach Bowl, and it was exciting too against North Carolina State, which we had played in 72, correct? We played North
Carolina 69.
69.
Yeah, 72. It was 72 or 69. Yes, 72. 72 and lost. That's right.
Lost and won. So this is just a short clip with, I think what you're going to say is your career highlight with that pass that was caught in the second half, and West Virginia had to come back. So here we go. This is North Carolina State is scoring. It was a low-scoring game, and they went ahead 7-0. And here's a great tackle right here. In fact, I can turn on. I, I try to turn on your microphones and I can't. Here, that basketball player,
Now
Scott
we go.
McDonald.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Scott McDonald.
Oh, yeah.
Caught the big slant route. Yeah.
And here's a great one. Glad I finally got your mic on. That was a great
Yeah,
pass
there we go.
from Tommy Kendra to Artie Owens.
Artie Owens, correct.
And here's the play.
There's my one catch.
All right.
There you go. There you go. This might be the slant. Yeah, Scott McDonald. I think I'm chasing Scott. He's 6'6", and I was running as fast as I could to catch up with him.
There it is.
That was the first one to him right there. So that was worth something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. And this is a great sequence here, Tommy. Great defense because they were coming back with Ray Marshall.
Like Ray Marshall again.
Yeah, Rick Lukowski coming up here. And then a great interception by Tommy Pridemore.
Yeah, he had several throughout the year, but this was a big one in the game, I believe.
Yeah, here it is.
Yep.
Coach, when I watch this, I asked you earlier about Tom Pridemore. I always see these highlights of this game, and it always perks me up a little bit. My father was sick at the time; he had ALS, and Tom Pridemore's father, Larry Pridemore, was his name, and some friends made arrangements to take my dad down to watch that game. So that was last game he got to see before he passed away. So he passed away a couple years later, but Tom Pridemore's dad helped make the arrangements for that. Got tickets and everything. Yeah. So every time I see the highlights of that Peach Bowl, I get a warm feeling. Exciting times. And you look good catching that pass too. That was nice highlight.
Might have had three catches that game, maybe. I know I dropped one that game. I dropped one pass all year and it was in that game. That's funny. That's the only one I remember is the one I dropped.
Yeah.
Coach, I remember your dad at a fundraiser talk he was giving down in Charleston one time. Somebody asked him about you being on the team. And he said, well, Tommy may not be the greatest receiver in America, but he knows the right people.
Yeah. I just got a text from Gary Lombard, who also played on that team. Gary Lombard, Andy Peters, the two defensive ends, just two great, bookends to a defense. And we had some interior people that could play, but Gary Lombard, Andy Peters, to Ken Culberson, just really good defense that year. It kept us in a lot of games.
Well, Tommy, we know you're going to have to leave, and boy, we really appreciate you taking the time to be with us. Obviously, the people watching the show live, and I'm sure those who watch it in the archive are going to they're delighted. So, Greg, comments, Mickey comments, and then we'll bid Tommy adieu.
All right, Tommy, thank you so much for joining us. The stories were great. We could sit and listen to them forever, and it's always exciting when we get someone of your stature and coaching and playing at WVU to join us, and it's been an absolute thrill for us, and we appreciate you so much.
Thank you,
Mickey.
Yeah, for well over 50 years now, the youth of America have been so blessed to have your dad and yourself involved in college athletics, and coaching young men, and instilling the right kinds of principles in them for the rest of their life, and really caring. I mean, I know your dad particularly. I'm not that familiar with your coaching career as I am your dad's, but I know he had such an influence on so many young men. And I just wanted to share one thing as we leave here. Tommy, I don't know if you're aware of this letter I got from your dad, if you've ever heard about it or not, but I wanted to share it with you. This was in 2015, which is 46 years after I played for the man, okay? And I had been diagnosed with esophageal cancer. And your dad wrote me this letter. How he found out, I will never know. But he said, Mickey, I just got word that you were very sick, and it concerned me. Ann and I will be praying for your recovery. You are always a fighter, and I know you will fight this problem with all you got. I got up to West Virginia homecoming last season when Ann and I were marshals in the homecoming parade, and they have selected me into the WVU Hall of Fame. And I expect you to be well enough to come to my indoctrination ceremony next fall. And then he signed it, "May the sun enfold you." And he spelled the word sun, S-O-N. May the sun always enfold you. Bobby Bowden, P.S. Know that you are being prayed for.
And
Your dad was
that's how
that was the man right there.
That's how he signed his letters as he got older. But West Virginia was such a special place for my father, because that really, West Virginia kickstarted his Hall of Fame career. That's where it all started, and he had such fond memories of it. Of course, myself and my wife being from there, going to junior high, high school, and college, I still go. Morgantown is a special. It's a special place, and it's a special place for the Bowden family. And I really appreciate y'all having me on the show. Appreciate what you do for West Virginia University, and all I can say is go Mountaineers.
Yeah.
There you go.
We got one more question. Not this one. I got the wrong one. This one right here. There we go. One more question before you leave. Your thoughts about the current program and Coach Brown.
I tell you what, people now, they're coaches get paid so much, they're so impatient. But Neil Brown is, him and a guy named Lincoln Riley, the head coach at Southern Cal, were on my list when I was a head coach of young coordinators. I followed if I ever had a chance, I was going to try to hire one of them. And Neil Brown was one of those guys. And now that I've seen what he did at Troy and seen what he's trying to do at West Virginia, he's got so much, being from Kentucky, he's got so much of West Virginia DNA in his blood. He's a guy that will not embarrass the program. I hope they are patient with him, because he's doing a really good job. They've got, he hates it, limited NIL money. That makes it hard. He's got to develop them and try not to lose them. And he's got the program heading in the right direction. He represents West Virginia well. He's a great ambassador for the school. I just hope the university's patient with him and give him enough time to get it done.
Couldn't agree more.
Thanks again, Coach.
Yeah, thank you so much, Coach. We appreciate you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Bye-bye, Ben.